This car did not exist. At least that's what you'd be told if you asked anybody at Porsche about it for almost 2 decades. It was designed to win Le Mans, but only did 78 kilometers in testing before it was hidden away in Germany and its existence denied. This is the story of the Porsche LMP 2000. Porsche had won Le Mans in 1996 and 97 with the TWR Jaguar-based WSC 95, and in 1998 they won again with the 911 GT1. But a decision had seemingly been made by Porsche to replace that car with an all-new machine designed to the new LMP 900 technical regulations. It would be a direct replacement for not only the WSC 95 but also the 911 GT1 98. Work on the new car, known internally as the 9R3, started in the summer of 1998 with the intention of racing it at Le Mans and in the brand new American Le Mans series in 1999. Reet Huidekoper, I believe that's how you pronounce it anyway, who played a key role on the 911 GT1 project, headed the car's design under the direction of Norbert Singer. The idea was for the new prototype to utilise the 3.2 litre flat-six engine and 6-speed sequential transmission from the 1998 version of the 911 GT1. Huidekoper objected to this as he felt that that engine was really too outdated by that point, and indeed it was much too heavy. He convinced senior figures in Porsche that the flat-six engine would not actually be competitive built into the new car. And 3 days after that meeting, when it was decided not to use the flat-six, the LMP 900 project was cancelled for the 1999 season. But the project wasn't actually over at that point. In early 1999, Huidekoper was invited back to the engine department at Porsche and he was shown another Porsche engine. This was a 3.5 litre Formula 1 engine which had been designed in total secrecy for use in the 1993 Formula 1 season. And it had also been gently developed from that point onwards all the way through to the end of 1995. This engine was designed as a replacement for the overweight, oversized and uncompetitive V12 Porsche engine that the company had supplied to the footwork team for part of the 1991 F1 season. It was realised that this new V10 engine could be reworked to be the basis of an endurance racing unit. Its capacity would be increased to 5.5 litres, though a 5 litre version was also considered. This capacity increase was achieved by increasing the stroke and slightly increasing the bore as well. A key advantage of the V10 over the original flat-six concept was that the 10-cylinder engine could be installed as a fully stressed member. It was designed that way for a Formula 1 car, while the 6-cylinder engine would have required additional bracing, increasing the weight of the car overall and reducing its stiffness. The final V10 engine had a 68-degree cylinder bank angle and it was 571mm long, and it was incredibly stiff. The engine used titanium connecting rods and the dual overhead cam cylinder head had 4 valves per cylinder, and here the design was modified significantly for endurance racing. The original pneumatic valves were not needed due to the air restrictors used in the LMP 900 regulations, so conventional valves and valve springs were fitted to the Le Mans specification engine. This change in engine selection, the flat-six being replaced by the V10, meant that the chassis design work started all the way back in 1998 would have to be changed. The mounting points on the rear bulkhead of the chassis had to be modified, as did the bell housing on the transmission. Indeed, changes were needed in the transmission itself due to the different crankshaft heights between the V10 and the flat-six. The chassis concept itself was quite neat and tidy and what we'd now see as being very conventional. It was an open-topped car, and that was chosen over a closed-top car as it was felt that this offered a bit more downforce, and while closed cars had a lower amount of drag overall, they also generated a bit too much lift. Open cars were also allowed to run wider tyres in the regulations, and an objective was set for the car. A car that had tyres that didn't wear as heavily, a car that was more economical in terms of overall fuel consumption, which I'd have thought would have favoured a closed car, but there you go, and a car that allowed for triple stints on the tyres instead of double stints. A concept that would have promised fewer pit stops at the Le Mans 24 Hours and a car that was more competitive overall. overall. The chassis itself and all of the composite work, in fact, including all of the bodywork, was done by Lola Cars in England, even though that Porsche doesn't appear in any history of Lola, or indeed anything but the most recent histories of Porsche itself. The monocoque itself was relatively conventional. It had composite skins with an aluminium honeycomb core. The overall car design as well was, like the chassis, quite conventional. The suspension concept carried over from the 911 GT1 98, although it was tweaked for the 1999 car and again for the definitive LMP 2000. It had a double wishbone layout featuring pushrod actuated dampers front and rear. At the front, the spring and damper units were mounted on a vertical angle in the front bulkhead, something that lowered the centre of gravity height while at the same time improving the aerodynamic opportunities around the nose of the car. At the rear of the car, the dampers and springs were mounted on top of the transmission casing, as you can see here. The aerodynamic concept of the car was worked out by Norbert Singer using Porsche's own scale model wind tunnel. It was actually quite a small scale facility and really quite outdated by that point, but Singer was really familiar with it and knew how to get the best out of it, so work on the LMP 900 car was conducted at 1/3 scale. You can see an early iteration of the car design here. Note the louvres in the wheel arches and the very angular bodywork ahead of the cockpit, details that were changed on the final car design somewhat. Even as the final work on the car was still being completed, the project was cancelled, but the Porsche engineers were allowed to finish that first LMP 900 car. It rolled out of the factory for a very short shakedown with Bob Wallach at the wheel in early November 1999. Alan McNish took over the driving duties for the very next day, and between them the two drivers covered just over 78 kilometres in the new car. And the feedback was really positive from both of them. Indeed, a tantalising shred of that feedback can be seen in this letter from Alan McNish to Porsche that he sent after the test. Looking over the design as a whole, it was a very conventional car, but very neatly executed at the same time. It had a wide and flat nose. The engine air inlets were mounted in the roll hoop, which was something a little bit unusual for the early days of the LMP 900 class. You'd typically see the engine intakes one side or the other side of the cockpit, not behind the driver's head, giving a slightly offset inlet tract down to the V10. At the rear, there was a twin-plane rear wing with very small end plates. The sculpted rear bodywork was somewhat higher than might have been expected for an LMP 900 car at that point, but the car wasn't fitted with the planned Le Mans specification bodywork for that first test, and I'm not actually sure the Le Mans spec bodywork was ever fully developed. Overall, the initial shakedown and car design gave the impression that the LMP 2000 had real potential and could potentially have matched the new Audi R8, but nobody would ever find out. After the shakedown, the car was pushed into a discrete storage area at the Porsche factory, and those involved in the car's development were told to deny the existence of the car completely. Exactly why the project was cancelled has never been entirely clear, and there are official stories alongside conspiracy theories. Officially, the LMP 900 to the Le Mans project was cancelled to focus resources on the development of a new Porsche SUV, a car that would be developed jointly with Volkswagen Audi Group. This car would go on to become the Cayenne, the Touareg and the Audi Q7. However, as I understand it, none of the engineers from the LMP 2000 ever worked on the SUV project, and it feels like such a shame that a Le Mans project where performance and efficiency is everything was replaced by a road-going SUV which goes against all of those principles, and indeed arguably against the values of the Porsche brand itself. The SUV, though, was an undeniable success financially, and if it really was a choice between racing at Le Mans with the LMP 2000 and building the new SUV, then choosing the SUV was the right business decision, even though it loathes me to say it. But there was more to it than that. Rumours have persisted to this day that the real reason that the LMP 2000 never raced was that there was a deal made between Porsche and the closely related Volkswagen Audi Group, not only to cooperate on the new SUV project, there was also a non-compete agreement as part of that wider deal to not race each other at Le Mans. Porsche had won the race 16 times. Audi had never won at Le Mans and had only just made its debut in 1999 with the Audi R8C and R8R cars. Perhaps a deal was done to prevent the new Porsche taking on the new R8 in 2000 so that the German firms didn't get into a spending and technological war to win Le Mans. It would have been a great battle to see, but it would have made no business sense when the two companies were getting ever closer at the time. Audi went on to dominate Le Mans for the next 14 years, the only interruptions being Bentley's win in 2003, and that used an Audi engine and Audi funding. The Peugeot's defeat of the Audi R15 in 2009 was the only other hiccup for Audi during that period, and we'll have to get back to that pretty soon, I think. After that point, Porsche won the race 3 more times in succession between 2015 and 2017. Audi later quit top-level sports car racing, leaving the company not only with an unraced evolution of the R18 from 2017, but also a never-completed LMDH rules car. We'll probably have to get back to those. The LMP 2000 project wasn't quite over, despite its cancellation. The engine from the car was again repurposed, this time for the new Carrera GT road car, which was fitted with a 5.7 litre version of that 10-cylinder engine, and the initial launch specification car also used the gearbox from the LMP 2000. Indeed, the secrecy around the existence of the LMP 2000 always struck me as a bit strange. The project had already been cancelled by the time the car rolled out, so surely then the secrecy around the car was also in force at that point. So why did the car wear such prominent sponsorship logos and branding? There would have been no point in doing that if the car was at that point an official secret. You'd have only put that branding on the car if you expected it to be seen in public. So this all does suggest that the car was at least expected to be seen in public even if it never raced. The car never did receive its final livery. It wouldn't have raced in that black colour scheme with those stickers on though. It would have been painted white along with all other recent Porsche racing cars at that point. This is a concept rendering from Porsche itself showing what that livery could have looked like. Other than that, the LMP 2000 essentially became something of a myth, a rumour over the years. Everybody knew the car existed, but nobody was willing to talk about it. Eventually though, Porsche decided to show the car off in public, first of all with a static display, and later on it got the car running again, and this was no easy process. Getting the V10 engine itself running wasn't too difficult it seems, but the transmission was a massive issue for the Porsche engineers, and they had to dig out some obsolete quarter-century old computer systems just to try to get the various electronic boxes talking to one another and trying to get the car to do something as fundamental as change gear. Eventually they had to use a controller from the Porsche Formula E project just to get the car to change gears. But once that work was done, they got the car into gear, got the engine fired up, and realised they could take the car out on track. A thorough restoration was done on the car, and you can see some of that work in the footage you're looking at right now. Alan McNish was once again put behind the wheel of the LMP 2000, and the car was taken out on the very same track it ran on for that 78 kilometres of running previously. It would have been fascinating to see how this car would have run had it ever been allowed to race. Would it have taken the fight to the otherwise dominant Audi R8? I'd love to have seen it. If you've enjoyed this tale from the test track, which has been kept secret for far too long, then don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon somewhere in the pit lane.